Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue our journey with Darcey on 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 days. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor, and when I watch these shows, I often have things to say, and so I thought I'd turn on the camera and see what I have to say in reaction to this TV show.
To being able to have a drink without someone calling you an alcoholic.
Exactly. My Dutch ex-boyfriend, Jesse, kept accusing me of having a drinking problem. Oh, Jesse. If I had a glass of wine or two, he thought I was an alcoholic.
But I just want to ask you to never drink again.
Yeah, keep drinking, Darcey.
Really? I don't
Hide problems.
Really?
Yeah, get arrested one more time.
Jesse.
So whenever I saw these scenes, and I think I talked about this before, I always wondered if Jesse actually has traumas in his past regarding someone who suffered from substance abuse, namely alcohol. It wouldn't be surprising to me if one of Jesse's parents had a significant problem with alcohol that led to a lot of attachment injuries for him and made him extremely sensitive to alcohol, and also made him associate attachment insecurity with alcohol, meaning that as he was triggered, as they were both triggering each other, he focused on the alcohol overly so, rather than focusing on how they were both triggering each other and how he was actually triggering her to pull away from him. If I got to know his traumas, I'm guessing I would have more elaborate things to say about it, obviously, but that would be a direction I would go in if I had a client that was like Jesse. The other thing I think about is the producers are only showing us certain things, right? So it's possible that Darcey did have concerning behaviors around alcohol that would justify a little bit more of why Jesse was saying those things. I can't imagine Darcey having behavior that would fully or even halfway justify the way that Jesse was talking to her, but we just always have to wonder what we were being shown and what we weren't being shown. For example, one of the things that Jesse found out was that, or at least according to Jesse, Darcey had gotten into a physical altercation with her sister, her twin sister, and the police were called. I have no idea if that's true. I'm avoiding all news and speculations and articles about these people because I want to react from a very spontaneous place, so maybe you know more information than I do. But the possibility, again, speculation, maybe Darcey did overdrink and then that led to conflict, which led to violence, which led to the police being called. And Darcey does have more problems with alcohol that the show isn't showing us. Who knows? There certainly doesn't seem to be a lot of evidence of that, but you just always have to wonder. But the bottom line is that the way that Jesse was approaching the alcohol question with Darcey was not functional.
I think it will. I feel like it's going to be amazing, and it's due time. You know, he's a good guy. They have a lot in common. He's perfect, and I would love a ring one day and be engaged to, you know, an amazing man like Tom.
Don't talk proposal.
We're equal.
Because you haven't met Tom in person yet.
A very consistent reaction from her daughters, from her sister, from her friend is, whoa, don't talk about proposal, slow down, just date this person. When you out there are seeing a very similar reaction from other people, try to pay attention to that. Usually people are being nice, and so they're probably not telling you, they're probably not emphasizing how much they think you need to be doing that. So the little bit you're hearing is an indication of a larger iceberg beneath the water. Now, it doesn't mean that all your friends are right by any means. I've talked about in previous episodes how friends don't always give the best advice because of their own anxiety and their own triangulation susceptibility. But in this instance, it would be, I think, helpful for Darcey to heed these warnings and say like, and not the simplistic reaction of, okay, maybe I need to pump the brakes, but a more deep evaluation of what is it about me that causes me to jump the gun so much? What attachment injuries or what attachment defense am I exhibiting by being overly optimistic and forgiving of people in order to make this happen? You know, that would be a question that I think would be a very worthy exploration for Darcey to have.
I'm having fun with it because I'm happy and I can finally just like love life again. Hey, I want a sexy hot man.
Yeah, but you don't need to marry him the minute you meet him. Oh my God, I am so nervous for this trip, to be honest. Before Darcey met Jesse, she said the same exact things.
So this is pointing in that direction that I was talking about in previous episodes, that Darcey is falling right back into the same process. She's saying, I don't want to be treated that way again. I know better. I'm going to pick a better man this time. And yet from the outside, friends are like, wait, you said that last time and look what happened. And you're saying the same things this time. This is where therapy comes into play. Therapy should help us take it to another level, get deeper so that we don't do these things. By the way, my normal disclaimers before I forget, I can't diagnose from afar. I have no idea what the reality is of these individuals. The producers are showing us a particular information. Me evaluating these people is like evaluating Captain America and Thor, because it could be largely fictional. Also, out there, understand that this sort of thing I provide online is not a substitute for therapy, which is obvious, I think. But I think the lawyers tell me to say that. Become a patron of the podcast by going to patreon.com. That's the way we know you like the show. If you can do anything if you like this channel, if you like what I do, the best way you can show your appreciation is to become a patron on patreon.com. It really means a lot to me when people sign up. Also, subscribe and click the bell below on YouTube. Then you'll get notifications whenever I post new episodes, which have been a lot lately because of the pandemic. I'm stuck at home just watching reality TV show all day. Also, comment below. Let me know what you think. Am I making any sense? Am I not making sense? I love to hear from you guys, so let me know. Try to be nice, because I have thin skin. I have thin skin.
He's Mr. Sexy, he's my this, he's my that. I love her and I hope for the best, but yeah, I just think it's unrealistic to have the expectations that she has.
I'm in love. I think I'm in love.
You're just like,
Darcey, I deserve it, Stacey.
Relax.
Let me be excited. You've had your little 3-year romp.
As these people, the friend and the sister, try to help Darcey, because they are being a little simplistic in their response of just like, hey, pump the brakes, you're doing this again, you're being stupid. That's the message they're giving. I don't know if that's how Darcey is taking it or their intention. I'm sure they're not intending on it being that way, but that's kind of the message. And if you've ever been in Darcey's shoes, you kind of get that message, like everyone thinks you're stupid for doing the same thing over again. Well, right now what's happening is that Darcey has a need for attachment with her friend and her sister that is being challenged because she feels insulted or criticized or ganged up on or something like that. And so in that moment, what does Darcey do? Well, because she's hurt and she isn't, I'm guessing, very aware of her hurt and able to own that hurt and value that hurt, she goes to a secondary emotion of anger, which is what she just exhibited by striking back at her sister. Look, you've had your 3-year romp. That's an insult. She's trying to push back. She's expressing her hurt through her anger. Her twin sister is not likely to interpret that as hurt. She's likely to interpret that as her being mean to her. And maybe the producers are trying to point out that alcohol is a problem for her because she's drinking. From the looks of it, she's had barely any alcohol so far. I don't know her tolerance level, but anyway, what I'm trying to say is I can't, even if she were sober, I could imagine her being hurt. I can imagine anyone being hurt when you're being ganged up on in this way.
It annoys me that Stacey isn't as supportive as I would like her to be, because she's engaged to a guy from Albania, and he proposed like that first trip she went on, so I just wish Stacey would recognize what I have with Tom is what I've been waiting for. He's perfect. You know what? We need to just video chat him right now so you guys can see for yourselves.
So the other thing that it just popped into my head, and maybe a lot of you have already thought about this sort of thing, is that in today's world with Instagram and social media, and particularly with some people like Darcey and her sister, they live in a world that is largely based on social media, meaning that it's a big part of their life. Now, a lot of us will judge that and say that's not a meaningful way to live, that it's empty, that it's fake and narcissistic. I don't find those accusations to be accurate at all. I find that it to just be a reaction to something new that's happening in our culture. When TV first came online in the 50s, there was a lot of accusations that were similar, that it was an idiot box and all this kind of stuff. Whenever there's something new. Now, it's not like these things don't change our society. They do. For me, for example, as an Asian, it's very common among Asian Americans for us to take pictures of our food because we're really into food and posting it on Yelp for our Yelp friends to see, or on Facebook for our Facebook friends to see. I do that. If I have a good bowl of ramen, I like to take a picture of it. When me and my wife go to dinner, she doesn't touch her food because she lets me take a picture of her plate as well, and I share it with my mom or my Asian friends, and we are like, oh my God, that looks so good. So now, for many people, I see skits or people making fun of that. Comedians like, who takes pictures of their food? That's really ridiculous. And it's often associated with being a woman, which I find to just be weird. So I have been the target of those kinds of accusations, and I find them to be short-sighted. There's nothing wrong with making jokes. I'll make jokes about it. But there is something wrong with people making solid conclusions about personality based on behavior that is outside of your culture. Essentially, what you're saying is that behavior it looks weird to me, and thus I'm going to pathologize it. So I'm not going to pathologize anyone, particularly as someone who has a podcast and a YouTube channel, that for people to have a lot of the meaning of their life through social media, through sharing things with an audience. I'm not going to lie. When I post a video on YouTube and I get a number of likes or I get some views, I'm not going to lie. It makes me feel good. It validates my life to some extent. Now, we like to privilege the notion that we should be able to live without such accolades and without such validation. And of course, that's not the baseline of my life. The baseline of my life are my main attachments, my wife, my family, my friends, and my clients and my students and people that are in my life in reality. But I do get a certain amount of meaning from feeling like I'm providing something that's useful for people out there in the world. So in the same way, for people like Darcey to post a picture of herself doing something and people like it and comment and cheer her on, that provides some meaning. So it's a cultural difference. It's a cultural pocket, shall we say. And if it's not yours, then and you don't get it, you don't want to pathologize it because we might call that colonialization or just otherizing. It's a form of prejudice and bigotry in a certain way. Anyway. Now it can carry with it a downside. There's certainly a lot of people that can suffer in that in the same way that you can suffer from anything. You could fish too much, you could hike too much and suffer from certain downsides. But anyway, so having said all that, I wonder about people like Darcey, people like Stacy, Darcey's sister, people like the Tom and Jesse and this guy in Albania, who their dating life and their attachment life is interwoven with their social media life. That it's very much the same life. And when they're dating, they post pictures online about dating that become part of how they interpret their dating life. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to pathologize that. It's just a different way of living. In the same way that some people might integrate their art, like their song, like I'm a songwriter, I'm a musician, and a lot of the songs that I've written have been about relationships, romantic relationships. And when I write, or when I'm going through a romantic experience, sometimes I think, ooh, I'm going to write a song about this. And that might be weird to some people, but we might privilege that because it's like, well, that's art, that's songwriting, that's Bob Dylan and John Lennon and Taylor Swift. But when it comes to social media, we tend to downplay it because for whatever reason, we have decided some things are valuable, sometimes they're not. Anyway, I wonder about how that might affect things. Is it a hindrance to people like Darcey who have that interwoven lifestyle? Does it mean that if they're getting a lot of likes and a lot of attention on social media, does it influence their decision to be in a relationship without really thinking, am I really in love with this person for who they are? Do they really love me? Is this really compatible outside of social media? If we just got rid of social media, are we really a good couple. I'm not accusing them of that, but I just wonder if that's a complicating factor. It could also be an enhancing factor.
I'm packing to finally meet my sexy, incredible, handsome new boyfriend, Tom, for the first time in person. So, how are you feeling? It's like 2 days away. I know, getting excited. It's like the countdown. 4 years in the making and just ready to see him.
So the other thing that comes to mind, and I have really no idea if this is true for Darcey, but I've seen this before anecdotally in my personal life, actually, which is that when you live in a culture that highly values things like how you look and how classy things are, how expensive things are, then it shifts your values in a certain way. And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I come from Seattle, which tends to have a lot of money in it, and there are certain values that I've adopted that I'm sure affect the way that I think about things. And when people go in that direction, then it can dominate your decision-making in a way that will make it hard for you to evaluate a romantic relationship. For example, people in this world that I've known personally, they are so concerned about looking low class. They're extremely concerned about not dressing up well, not being at the right club, not hanging out with the right people, not having the right fashions or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that game that people play. Like I said, as a Seattleite, there's a certain level that I play in that game. So it's not like that's the other. People might look at me and say that I play that game, which, would be valid. But there's a spectrum, and the higher up, I guess it depends on how anxious you are about seeming low class, and that constant striving for seeming high class or whatever sort of class they're trying to aspire towards, or their the class game that they're playing. And the group of people you hang out with can have values that are said or unsaid that really galvanize all your attention and effort on making sure that you're always high in your game and establishing that you are high class and not low class. I guess in my world, it's also, I live in academia as a professor, and there's a fair amount of game playing around seeming like you're a good professor, that you know what you're talking about, that you're up to date on research, that you don't say the wrong things, that you have the right attitudes about things. And so there's certainly some gamemanship around that. And that gamemanship in academia can interfere with open-minded research foci and open-minded discussions around things that should be discussed to further our ideas. But anyway, so when you're hyper-focused on high class and fashion, then you might overlook things that are maybe more fundamental, like, is this person good for me? How do I feel around this person? Does this person care about me? Do we have incompatibilities? How can I know my feelings and express them? Because to some extent, and this is just anecdotally from the pockets that I've seen, is to be high class is also to be kind of above it all and to not have emotions and not to be affected by things. And to live in a good or a functional, long-standing romantic relationship, you cannot be above emotion. You can't be above the messiness of life. You have to express yourself in a vulnerable way. Like, when you did that, it hurt my feelings. Or when you said that, it worried me, or those kinds of things. And you have to be able to have those conversations. Like, when you looked at that woman, it triggered my past traumas, and I was hurt that you were looking at her in a way that made me jealous, and I was worried that I'm going to lose you. You can certainly look at whomever you want, but I'm just telling you how I feel about that. And then the other person, he's like, wow, when you say that, it triggers my past feelings because I've been accused of things wrongly before, and I feel like you're accusing me of being a lech, even though I was just kind of looking around the room. I don't even think I was looking at the person you think I was. And that conversation can go where you're both owning your feelings, taking care of each other. If you're always focusing on how do I look, how does the selfie look, how is social media taking us, how are these TV producers filming us right now, making sure that you're always looking good, that could eclipse maybe some more fundamental important things. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with wanting to look good. There's nothing wrong with aspiring and playing the class game. But there is something harmful to oneself when it's overly focused on. I can't say that that's the case for Darcey, but I would wonder what she would think about that.
Just a little nervous because the girls' night out, I feel like there was a little bit of tension with Tom. I know we're all just having a good time and letting loose, but I felt there was some overly flirtatiousness on his end with Raina. I don't know, I think it just rubbed me the wrong way after I thought about it. I felt the boob comment little kind of threw me off a little bit, but I don't know. You know, it stung a little bit to see that. If he can do that in front of me, how does he act when I'm not around? I don't know.
So I don't know if I showed this clip, but they were talking with Tom, the three women, the twins, and their friend with Tom over Skype or something. And the friend was kind of flirting with him in a playful way. And she was like, let me show you my cleavage. And he was like, let me see your cleavage. And this was a little bit concerning to Darcey. And as she's saying right now, it bothered her a little bit. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with feeling jealousy. I'm here to tell you that jealousy is normal. Some people don't feel it very much. Other people do. It's not a matter of suppression or judging the self. Why am I so jealous? I need to not be jealous. It's a matter of like, well, where is that jealous feeling coming from? And how do I communicate that to my partner to have them reassure me? So one road, and there's many roads, for Darcey to be healthy and build a fundamental routine in a relationship that will sustain the test of time is for her to evaluate her feeling. Okay, I'm angry at Tom for that. Okay, that's a secondary emotion. What's the primary emotion? Well, it feels like jealousy. Okay, it feels like jealousy. It's okay to be jealous. Why am I jealous? Well, I'm jealous because he seemed to be flirting with my friend, which triggered something in me and makes me worry that Tom is going to flirt with other people, which means he doesn't really love me, which means he's going to leave me. And it was also kind of hurtful that my friend and him were doing this right in front of my face. I wish they would not do stuff like that because it worries me. Okay, totally normal. So then you go to Tom and you say, so I just wanted to talk about what happened last night. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm not accusing you of being a jerk. I know you were just playing around with my friend, and my friend was was reciprocating, and I'm mostly okay with it, but I just want to let you know how it felt for me in the moment. It just kind of scared me because I've been cheated on in the past, and I worry that it was just a tiny little sign that you might hurt me, that you might cheat on me and hurt me. I'm not accusing you of anything. I have no reason to believe you're cheating on me, but I just want you to know how it affects me. And on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being like the worst feeling I could possibly have, this was like a 2 or 3. It wasn't that big of a deal, so I don't want you to worry about it too much, but I just want you to know what's happening for me on the inside, because I feel like I want you to know how things affect me so that, you can make choices that maybe are informed by how I'm going to react to it. Maybe you've had partners in the past who didn't mind about that sort of thing, or maybe for you it wouldn't have affected you that way. But for me, that's how it affects me, and I hope that you care about that. And then Tom could say, oh my God, yeah, I'm sorry that I did that. Thank you for telling me. I'm glad you're telling me that. You're right. I shouldn't be being. I thought you would appreciate the game. I was trying to be slick and funny, but I could see how the joke wasn't overall a good choice. And so I'm going to keep an eye on that because I do care about you, and I don't want you to be scared about me because I'm not cheating on you, and I don't plan to, and I don't want you to be worried about that. So thanks for telling me. That's a conversation that I'm telling you is possible, and almost no one has it. Almost nobody has that conversation. And when I engineer these conversations in therapy, and people have their own words and their own vibe about how they say these things, magical things happen, i.e. secure attachment, lowering of the distress, trust, routines of how to deal with this kind of stuff. It's magical, people. And the reason why no one does it is because it's never been modeled to us by our parents or our friends or reality TV shows. There's almost nothing on TV that exhibits functional communication between couples because it's, I guess, just not very entertaining. Also, we don't teach our kids this kind of stuff. I often rant about the fact that in schools, now I'm a math and science person. When I was in high school, when I had electives, I took advanced chemistry, advanced physics, advanced math, because that was where my strengths were. I wasn't very good in English and history and language. Ironically, now that I'm in psychology and a lot, it's just sort of a weird thing. But we spend all this time in school on math and science, and almost no time at all do we spend on attachment, how to communicate. I'm not saying we should get rid of math and science, but I'm just saying that maybe if we spent 10% of the time that we do on math and science on attachment style, functional communication, how to know your feelings, how to communicate about that, how to take care of other people when they are vulnerable with us. Now, I know there are some efforts afoot to do that, but not enough, not even close to being enough. A lot of schools, they'll spend like a week in health class on communication. That is not enough. That's just not enough. Anyway, end of rant.
It's hard to trust somebody that you haven't met in person, that you haven't touched or kissed. It was harmless, just meant for fun. It was but meant at for the same time, it kind of looked a little... Yeah. I think Darcey, she has an open heart, and she just kind of... The next day, Tom and I, we talked a little bit, and I think I got a little sassy because I think I made a comment that didn't really sit well with him.
Okay, so we're falling right back into the old patterns because Darcey hasn't been through therapy to get to know her own emotions, get to know her own feelings, to own them, to not be ashamed of them, be okay with them, and to exhibit them at the fundamental level rather than being accusatory and sassy and angry and hostile in some ways. So we didn't hear that conversation, but she says she was being sassy with him and he didn't like that. I suspect it was something along the lines of, well, you're just a little flirty slut, aren't you? I mean, not those words, but something along those lines. Now, again, where that comes from, the underlying feelings are valid. How it morphs into sassiness and hostility and criticism makes sense, but is not going to help the other person to understand. If you're being come at, if you're Tom and Darcey's like, being sassy, whatever that means, well, he's just going to interpret that like, oh, she's controlling. Maybe he'll conclude that. She doesn't want me to play games with other women. I mean, it was right in front of her. I'm not going to have sex. I was just making a joke. Like now she's telling me I can't make certain jokes. Part of my identity is the ability to make jokes like that. And if she can't be secure enough to handle, you just see someone having that attitude rather than the conversation I said earlier where he's given an opportunity to understand her vulnerability, which engages his heart, which engages his response to take care of her. She's talking about, the two of them are talking about red flags about him when they should be looking at red flags about how they, in a routinized way, are developing a pattern that will inevitably lead to pain and suffering.
He thought I was saying it was like a controlling thing, like as if I was trying to control what he could say or who he could chat with. He was, I don't want to feel like insecure because that's all I've ever had before in the past. Jesse did bring up a lot of that insecurity out of me. Guess who calls at 3 in the morning? I didn't answer the phone, but guess who? Here he is. Missed call from Jesse, 3:13 a.m. Did he leave a message? Or... No. I just don't know why Jesse would call at like 3 in the morning. It was very odd and strange. But are you a little curious what he wanted? No. I don't want any phone calls from him. I don't want that energy on my phone or in our life.
This is a little concerning because it's strange for him to be attacking her online and then calling her. You got to wonder what the quality of their back and forth has been. We obviously don't know everything. There's a red flag here that he might be turning into a kind of like a stalker in a certain way. We'll see as time goes on. It's possible that he was calling to say, hey, just wanted to connect. I miss you. I know we're not together anymore, but I had a couple drinks and I was thinking about you and hey, how you doing? It's a normal impulse that people will have. Whether or not it's the best idea for people to do that is debatable. But there's also a possibility that he still, because of his attachment injuries, really, really misses her the way that people do when you break up. And he certainly exhibited in the previous seasons that he continually would come back to her and would continue, they'd have these huge fights and then he would come back to her. And that's evidence, hard to know without talking to him, But it's evidence that deep down, he has a tremendous need for attachment security and sees Darcey as a potential target or object of that attachment security, and his heart is really locked onto her in a way that we do when we fall in love. That's totally normal. And is, after the breakup, still longing for her, still really desperate for that closeness. Again, totally normal. But because of that veil of superiority and narcissism that one might speculate that he has, I have no way of knowing, but potentially that's there. That feeling gets transformed through the veil as she did something wrong to me. She is a bad person. She deserves to be hurt because of how hurt I feel right now, because we've broken up, and because she's not coming back to me, and she's not answering my phone calls, and she's dating someone else on social media. I feel this hurt, longing feeling on the inside of my soul, but I can't admit that I'm vulnerable, because to admit I'm vulnerable means to admit that I'm vulnerable in all the other ways that I'm terrified to admit, and all the ways that I was shamed for when I was young. Again, this is a lot of speculation, who knows? But I've certainly seen this profile before. So I have to transform that overwhelming hurt and longing into something else, which is hostility and anger. In the same way that for Darcey, when she felt hurt and afraid, she transformed that into jealousy and then into hostility and sassiness and controlling behavior. And for Jesse, it's possible that pain is being transformed into hostility and attacking. And if you've ever been to Target, which I'm guessing a lot of you have, I know what that feels like. It's terrifying. It's awful. For someone who used to love you and be nice to you to now be stalking you, trying to terrorize you, trying to get underneath your skin, trying to hurt your feelings on purpose, trying to make you afraid of them, that is extremely uncalled for, pathological, and a big problem. Now, we don't know enough, but it's just a little yellow flag of that, given that he's calling her, which I'm guessing isn't what most of his friends would say would make any sense. Like, why would you call her? You guys broke up in this really bad way. Maybe if he texted beforehand, hey, I'm going to call you. I just have some things I want to apologize for. We can't imagine Jesse, given his personality, saying something like that. So I have some worries about this.
Maybe he's the one. We'll see.
All right, well, that does it for that installment of me reacting to the show 90 Day Fiancé following Darcey's story. Please subscribe and hit the bell below. And also, more please, take care of yourself and take care of other people, because you deserve it. We all deserve to be taken care of and to take care of others and have it be reciprocated. So build that in your life as best you can. Please, for everyone's sake.